Let's dive back in and take a look at how I made the thumbnail for the video on working with icoparticles. Obviously, this is a little bit different than what was shown in the tutorial, but it's not very difficult to get here. So for starters, all we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, add a icosphere, and I'm going to scale this down pretty significantly. Let's do a radius of just about there, 0.1, and subdivisions of 1. You can see we're already partway to our sort of final form. We're going to go ahead, grab a bevel modifier, and that's going to give us this nice sort of hexagon structure. And right away, I'm going to apply this. Drag this off its side so you can see that we're looking at kind of the same thing here. From here on, I'm going to add a geometry nodes modifier, and you can see I've already got my basic point nodes from the Icoparticle basics video. This is way too large, so we'll bring the atom scale down quite significantly. And there's one thing that we had to do when we did the bevel, and I forgot to do it, which is to add a weld modifier. I don't have to now because I've already created this in object mode, or rather I've applied the modifier. So what I could do is I could add a weld modifier. We'll do that through here. And if I move this up above the geometry nodes, you can see I now no longer have that intersecting geometry, suggesting there's multiple spheres being placed. The other way that I could do this is simply get rid of this, tab into edit mode, A to select everything, M to merge by distance. We'll go ahead, you see that we've lost 40 verts and we now have everything nice and cleaned up. There we go. So now that I have my points, I can again do all the things that I wanted to do before, where I can set the color, set the which atoms I want present and not. So let's go ahead and just do that quickly. Let's grab this one, Control G, and we'll say that's group 1. We'll call this remove atoms. And we'll grab a few here and make them silver. Let's say these ones, Control G again, a new group. We'll call this set color. And now we'll tab back into object mode and we'll just grab these very quickly. So remove atoms, there it goes, and set color, here we are. You'll notice also that the silver this time around is a little bit bigger. And when we go and look at the geometry nodes tree, you'll see exactly why. But first, the thing that I want to stress here is that because these spheres are instance objects, I can do things to the underlying mesh using modifiers, and it won't be impacted unless I realize the instances. So let's go ahead, add a bevel modifier again. You can see this is way too significant a bevel, so I'm actually going to bring the amount down quite substantially. And let's get something a little bit smoother, let's say 3. So right away, we've got something that looks kind of interesting. What I'd like to do, however, though, is add a little bit more. So I'm going to add a solidify, and you can see this already has some shading changes because I changed the main color material to have transmission. So if it were solid, which is also quite a nice look, to be honest, then this is how it would appear. Very, very low roughness, so it's quite shiny. But what I can do instead is bring this transmission value up, and actually in this version here that I used in the thumbnail, I stuck a point light right inside. Did that by simply grabbing this, hitting Shift S, choosing cursor to selected right there, and then with Shift A, just adding in a point light. You can see it gives this nice little shining effect in the center. To make this more prevalent, could give it a little bit of fall off, but much less fall off. And then you see we've got something interesting here. For this case, actually, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that because I think it's a little bit more compelling this way. So let's go take a quick look at how I managed to separately scale the silver and red spheres, and we're going to do that in geometry nodes. Of course, we can also just give this a little bit of rotation for visual interest, and if I select the camera, so we'll move these to their respective folders. Let's move this to icospheres, let's move this to lights. If I select the camera that I'm working with right now, which is, I believe, the 35, then I can come down here and I could choose in depth of field a focus point. Let's grab that icosphere right there. Bump that number so that really it's only this one that's going to be in focus. You can see that's not quite perfect, so we're going to bring that up just a little bit, 1.8 maybe. Let's try 2.8. And now you can see we've got this first object in focus, but it trails off towards the end. That's kind of the ideal. We can also sort of just do this by hand, if you will, by choosing custom distance. So I'm going to bring this value down to, let's say 1, let's say 0.1. That's much too far. Bring this in, and all I'm doing is sliding, holding shift until I've got just this first object in focus. That's pretty good. I'm actually going to now bring the f-stop down, because I do want this one to be faded, but I want this one to kind of be in view. So that's not bad. Well, let's do something like that. Not rotate it in. Right, and so that's kind of fun. And then we can drag this away. You can see that that is now going to expose the light, so I'll delete that. We've got this kind of trend of these things growing larger as they come towards camera. That's sort of the idea here. Just bring that scale down the tiniest bit. And so let's hop over to geometry nodes and see how it is that these are set up to be a little different. Also, if we apply the scale, you can see that those are going to fix a little bit better. So in geometry nodes, it's here to grab the camera. Here we are. Let's grab our geonodes, and you can see this time around, all I've done is set a scale instances node right at the end of this tree. And so using the same selection that I have for set color, I can now set the scale of just these specific atoms, namely the silver ones. Just like that. And of course, you could do this for any number of other transforms as well. Let's go ahead and put something in the scene that's a little bit more pronounced. So instead of using a sphere, let's use a cylinder. Very quickly, we'll use Shift-A, add in a cylinder. I'm going to zoom out quickly. Tabbing to edit mode, I'm holding down G, Z, and Control, and then I'm just moving that so the origin point is here. S and Shift Z, so I'm only moving this in X and Y, and then S and Z to scale that down. Again, nice and small. And I'm going to hit M and move this into my scattering sphere collection. So scattering objects. Perfect. Now I can again choose what I want to cast on this. I'm going to use the cylinder I just created, and I'm going to align it to the normals. So now you can see we've got this nice little cylinder. Let's go ahead and make some changes to it. So S and Z, make that a little bit longer. Control A to apply that scale. You can see now these are very, very tiny. So we're just going to scale that up. We've got these little wire rods. And of course, if we wanted to, we could then do things like manipulate those specifically. So you see, this is actually going to update everything for all the different geonodes. And so if I wanted this to be only updated for the object in question, then I would have to expose this parameter to the user and drag that out right there. And now this is unique to each object. So I can drag this up as much as I like here, bring that down, and you can see I'm not impacting these whatsoever. In fact, I'm only impacting the silver ones. So if I wanted to then scale so that I was only impacting the red cylinders here, again, this is another scale instances node. And this time around, we're going to drag out a separate scale, but we're also going to change that selection. So I just introduced a reroute node there by holding down Shift and then right click and dragging across. Go into G and move this. Look for a Boolean not by dragging out. There we go. That's our opposite selection right there. Delete that. And now we can drag out a separate scale. Bring out just the red ones. Just like that. And so that is another way to add this kind of fun customizable control to these objects. So you can see very quickly I've managed to differentiate these between having the spheres of different colors to these right here. If I wanted to, I could also do something kind of more interesting, like give the user control over the two colors that I'm mixing. So let's go ahead and take a look at doing that very quickly. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to store a named attribute. Again, using that reroute. And I'm going to store this on, let's say, the instance. The type of data I want to use is color. I'm going to drag this to the input. We'll call this color 1, color underscore 1. And we'll do the same thing here. Drag out a separate one. Again, with the reroute. The reroute here is just because if I try to add to the geometry, then it's going to do both for join, and I don't want that. And we'll call this color 2. Give this its own unique value. And so we'll just name those very clearly. Color 1 and color 2. And again, we're here, so we'll clean this up. Scale 1 and scale 2. Now we can jump on over to shading nodes. And we're already differentiating. Let's just go ahead and come to the camera view there. Yep, perfect. we're already differentiating between these things. So let's go ahead and grab our atom color on the basis of attributes. So this is nothing new in this sense. We're just going to grab those values, color underscore 1, put this here, and color underscore 2, plug this into the B socket. And now I can customize these entirely from the GeoNodes panel. And so each of them is now customizable per object. And so this is really just meant to be a bit more of a in-depth demonstration of some of the ways that you can quickly create and customize these systems. Obviously, this is nothing particularly groundbreaking for a figure, and I wouldn't anticipate people using this per se when they're doing their own work. I will make this file available to people who want to kind of explore and play around, but the basic original point nodes is the one that is still going to be the go-to for just scattering something on a simple point. And again, that is outlined in the other video from the Unlisted series. I will make that available in the description. Thanks as always to the people who support this on Patreon and through purchasing the CGFigures asset library. Until next time, you have yourselves a great day.